Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's Bryan, Director of Skincare Research for Paula's Choice Skincare. It is Thursday, July 19th. Thank you, computer. You know how when it's summer, the days just kind of all blurred together? Maybe that's just me. It's not like I'm on summer vacation. But anyway, I'm here for this week's live chat with all of you who are tuning in live. And if you aren't catching this live, and listening to it later, you can always go to the comments section and post your questions. For at least a week or two after every chat, I do visit the comments section and do my best to answer all of the questions that I did not get to during this hour and or those who did not have the opportunity to watch and or listen when we were live. So there are some questions mounting. Quite a few, actually. I had a couple things to tell you. I'm a little bit scattered today, and I tried to clear my head by going for a walk because it's a beautiful day here. And I actually really love walking through our neighborhood. It's quite pretty, lots of old trees and whatnot. And then I got back and I was like, oh, I'm all sweaty now. So I basically put the t-shirt on and I'm super cash today. I need a haircut. I've got grays coming in. I'm going to the salon tomorrow. So next week, my hair won't look so, well, I know it doesn't look bad, but you know when all those grays start coming in and they like really start coming in because it's been like maybe 2 months since your last color and it's like, ugh. I remember the days when I could dye my hair and it was just fun. You know, I want to try on a different color. Maybe I'll be brunette this week. Ooh, what would auburn look like? Now it's just like, ugh. I don't have handsome grays. I am not like George Clooney. I'm not like a silver fox type of gray guy. It's like dishwater gray hair with mousy brown hair, and it just looks drab and dull, and I don't like it. And I'm fair enough skin tone wise that I need some warmth to my color. If I let my hair just go natural, which would probably be about 50% gray by now, I think it would really drain a lot of the color from my face, and I need all I can get because I won't tan. And self-tanners annoy me. I know some people are great at self-tanners. There's some great ones out there. My coworker Desiree is a self-tanning whiz. I wish I could self-tan like she does and have it look that good, but it's one of those maintenance things that I just kind of draw the line at. Don't know why. So first question, looks like there's oh, maybe it's not a question. It's a comment maybe from Jacob. He says, been a huge fan of Paula's Choice since her book, Don't Go to the Cosmetics Counter, 2nd edition, and been a fan since love Paula's Choice products. People can't believe I'm 50. They're like, you look older. No, you don't look a day over 30, and on a bad day, real good. 30 healthy lifestyle sunscreen and Paula's Choice. Also good genes in my mom, who is a former model at 71, told she's looked 50. Okay, Jake, I was like, are we getting to the question? But I appreciate the backstory. My question is, what is the pH of the 10% Azelaic Acid Booster? Thank you, Paula, Bryan, and everyone on the Paula's Choice team. Sorry, dyslexia. I think you were just excited, Jacob. I don't know if that's really dyslexia, but if that is what you struggle with, then you know, I'm hoping you're doing what you can to get under control. So the pH of our new 10% Azelaic Acid Booster, I can't look it up right this second, so I'm going from memory here, and I want to say it's about 4.2. Azelaic acid is effective in a pH range of roughly about 3.9 up to 5. It's when it's most effective and most stable. And in terms of it functioning as an exfoliant, keratolytic, if you will, it's about, I believe, in the upper range of 4 moving towards 5 that it works best. We didn't really formulate the Azelaic Acid Booster to exfoliate. It does to a slight degree, but one of the reasons that we put 0.5% salicylic acid with the 10% azelaic acid is to give that azelaic acid an exfoliating nudge that the salicylic acid can provide, which is why I'm thinking that the pH of the booster is like 3.941. Let me, There's a few other people. Pen's not working. A few other people have asked that, so I'll get you guys a definitive answer and come back with that. But if you are asking in terms of, if you're asking from the standpoint of, well, should I switch to the Azelaic Acid Booster instead of my AHA or BHA exfoliant, the answer is no. The primary reason to use the Azelaic Acid Booster is for skin tone and what I call multi-flaw improvement. And by flaws, I mean like random areas of discoloration. It can be discoloration from the sun. It can be discoloration from post-breakout marks, that type of thing. Uneven skin tone. Azelaic acid is a great antioxidant. It's incredibly soothing on skin. It can be beneficial to reduce signs of surface redness, that type of thing. I wouldn't go for the Azelaic Acid Booster if none of those concerns are bothering you. But for example, you do struggle with clogged pores and like a rough texture. But most of us have several different things going on at once, and the Azelaic Acid Booster is one more product you can consider adding to your skincare wardrobe to take better control of those visible signs of aging and other signs of skin distress. Because it works, I know I'm kind of going on about azelaic acid, partly because this is a brand new product for us, and partly because this is just such a fascinating ingredient. We have a really cool article about it on our site. If you just go to the paulaschoice.com and search for azelaic acid, the article will come up. What is so intriguing about azelaic acid when it's well formulated, it's a difficult ingredient to formulate with. I think there are some brands out there that have had some headaches from it. At least I suspect they have. What is so interesting about azelaic acid is that unlike other ingredients that have overlapping benefits, azelaic acid works via a different mode of action and via different pathways in the skin. And what we're learning, the more we dive into and the more research reveals about the physiology of skin, the more we are understanding as formulators that for numerous types of concerns, it takes the combined synergistic effort of several different ingredients attacking the problem from various angles via different pathways to get the best results. So it's not that you can't get results from azelaic acid alone, or you can't get results from salicylic acid or niacinamide alone, but when you combine those types of ingredients in different products and layer and or alternate their use, you will see even greater benefits. And that is one of the reasons that the azelaic acid product fits so perfectly into our booster collection, because all of those products are designed to take the results from skincare products to the next level. Very cool. Let's see. Katie says, love the new booster. Thoughts on foundations like Armani's Luminous Silk or Maybelline Matte and Poreless? Can the alcohol in or fragrance be damaging? I currently use Urban Decay Naked Skin. Generally, most foundations that I've come across that contain fragrance, it's typically barely detectable and often towards the end of the ingredient list. There are some brands, Dior comes to mind. Not 100%, I haven't personally looked at Dior foundations in quite a while, but I remember from years past, them and Chanel, of course the French, they're in love with fragrance, they would put fragrance in their foundations, and it was pretty strong. You could, even after it's set, you're like, yep, that's rose, or whatever it was. And natural or not, doesn't make a difference. Fragrance can be an irritant for skin, particularly when it's used in higher amounts. So my overall take, though, given that I emphasize people using as few fragrance to leave on products as possible, is that there are enough foundations out there without fragrance that are incredible that I wouldn't recommend somebody put up with one that contains fragrance or a high amount of alcohol for that matter. And by high amount, I mean that the alcohol is like the number 3, 4, or 5 ingredient. If it's towards the bottom third or that middle section of the ingredient list, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Chances are very good it's going to evaporate before it can harm skin, or the ingredients that precede it are going to help shield skin from its damaging effects. But having said that, there are enough foundations out there in different formats without alcohol and without denatured alcohol is what I'm referring to, not the fatty type alcohols, cetyl, sterol, cetyl alcohol, bihenyl alcohol. Those are fine. Those are benign. There are enough foundations without the alcohol, without the fragrance, that you don't need to settle, unless it's a special circumstance where you've personally found that, like, this is the only foundation that doesn't make your breakouts worse, or this is the only foundation that has a shade that perfectly matches your skin. You've tried others, it's just been one disappointment after another, and if that describes you, then stick with it, and the risks of fragrance and alcohol become secondary. You can try to mitigate those by making sure every other product in your routine doesn't contain any problematic ingredients. It's kind of a situation of the whole adding up to the sum of the parts in your routine. Let's see here. If I'm going to skip to some other people, so if you have multiple questions, I will circle back as time allows. L. Smith says, what's the deal with coated versus uncoated zinc oxide? I know a cult favorite sunscreen that uses uncoated ZNO, which is zinc oxide, and TiO2, which is titanium dioxide. Just wondering if it's effective. So, what's the best way to describe this without getting like too technical? My understanding, and for sure what we do at Paula's Choice with all of our mineral sunscreens, whether it's an in-part mineral or pure mineral, we only use the coated type of zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, and they are non-nano. In some cases, they're kind of like right at that cusp, but even if they are nano-sized, we're not using them, but I know some brands are, and it's really not a problem if the titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are coated. What the coating does is it surrounds or encapsulates, if you will, a very small ingredient into a larger ingredient that not only enhances application, meaning that you get better coverage of the active ingredients, you don't get what's called agglomeration, which is where those mineral actives in an emulsion, like a lotion or a cream, they tend to clump up. And then when you go to put it on your skin, you're getting uneven coverage, which of course will leave parts of your skin vulnerable to sun damage, sunburn. In a coated formula, those titanium dioxide and zinc oxide particles are evenly dispersed throughout the formula, and then they have even spreadability on skin. The other advantage is aesthetic, in that when those larger mineral sunscreen molecules, which have a bit of natural opacity and whiteness to them, when they are made smaller, they are more cosmetically pleasing. You don't get that thick, pasty-looking white cast on skin that won't go away no matter how much you rub. You might see a little bit of a whiteness, maybe even a little bit of a lavender tint, depending on the percentage of those mineral actives in the formula, and whether or not the brand added cosmetic pigments like iron oxides to help mask that coloration without losing the sunscreen effectiveness. I'm kind of wanting you to dish on the cult favorite sunscreen that uses uncoated ZNO and TiO2. You're going to get, I'm kind of curious as to what that one is, and I'm wondering if it's like the COTS brand or one of those lesser known brands. I mean, years ago, the uncoated was definitely more popular because the technology wasn't there for the coated materials, and now it is. And I can't imagine a cosmetic chemist working on a product within the last 3 to 5 years, and it's a mineral active, whether mixed with synthetics or used alone, and then not opting to use a coated formula. It's just better all around. The other thing it keeps the mineral actives from doing is interacting in a negative manner with other ingredients in the formula. You can find studies showing that mineral actives can interact with other chemicals in a sunscreen and cause free radical damage. However, when they're coated properly, that interaction doesn't take place. So you're still getting the advantages of the mineral actives without any of the deleterious, here's a fancy word, effects. Lena says, hi Bryan, I have sensitive skin and occasional rosacea redness flares. I can't tolerate vitamin C and I'm allergic to niacinamide. What are my best ingredients and Paula's products for evening skin tone? Oh, that's a bit of a dilemma. I mean, I would definitely encourage you to try one of our beta hydroxy acid exfoliants. If you are not sure if you can tolerate BHA because of your rosacea, some people can't. You know, truth and beauty, some people can't. However, salicylic acid is a natural anti-inflammatory. It's chemically related to aspirin, and there is research showing beneficial effects on people who apply that and are dealing with rosacea. So definitely, if you haven't gone down that road yet, I would try a BHA, and I would definitely try a BHA over an AHA, like glycolic or lactic acid, because the AHAs are not naturally anti-inflammatory. So I would say one of your best combinations would be to use the, I'm thinking of our, that wouldn't have those ingredients in there. And it's I would start with the Comm 1% BHA lotion exfoliant. And then for some further skin tone improvement, man, we use niacinamide a lot. I'm thinking of something that you could get some bang for your buck with retinol, and some people with rosacea can absolutely tolerate retinol, but our retinol serum has vitamin C in it as well. It has a form of it. Can't use the brightening essence because of the niacinamide. Another, actually, Elena, you could try the 1-2 punch. If you're up for experimenting, we have our Resist Triple Action Dark Spot Eraser, 2% BHA gel, and that not only has the 2% salicylic acid, but it also has hydroquinone, which is the gold standard skin lightening ingredient that it's typically used for brown spots, but there's no reason you can't put it all over your face. Dark Spot Eraser BHA Gel. I'm just double checking the ingredient list and making sure that there isn't, I don't think there's any niacinamide in here or vitamin C. Aloe, willow herb. Very, very soothing formula. No. Okay. So give that a go. Let's just have you use the one product and see what happens. And let me know what you think. And we'll go from there. And then you've got, if for some reason the Triple Action Dark Spot Eraser Gel doesn't work well for you, isn't compatible with your rosacea skin, call our client services team, tell them we had this discussion, and tell them to send you a Calm 1% BHA lotion. Turquoise Beauty asks, trying to get rid of stubborn blackheads on my nose. I have the 9% BHA and the 2% BHA. Should I use the 9% every day until they are gone and then maintain with the 2%, kind of use both at the same time? Yes and yes. Unless you see the combination gives you what I call a kickback of sorts, meaning that you're starting to see like some dryness, some flaky skin. When you use an AHA and BHA exfoliant, seeing dryness and flaking is not an anticipated result. That is not a sign that your skin is being exfoliated. When our skin exfoliates naturally on its own, as it does when we're younger, before we accumulate sun damage, we don't see it happening. We just see our skin looking pretty darn good most of the time. So if that does happen with you, scale back use. You could start in that situation, if the blackheads are still there, you could start by cutting the 2% BHA liquid, and then keep using the 9% BHA and see if that helps. And then if it doesn't, then I would say go back to using the 2% and drop the 9% down to like once or twice a week. Lise or Ilsa? I think it's Lise. No, maybe it is Ilsa. It could be. I'm sorry. Either one, I see your question. Forgive my ignorance here. My question is, am I able to use a vitamin C serum with my 2% BHA at night? I've read that they're both acids, so they shouldn't be used together. I don't see any reason why not. I haven't seen anything in the research against doing so. The vitamin C serum, if you're referring to a product like our C15 Super Booster, that's formulated in the lower pH that pure ascorbic acid works best in and is most stable in, and then you're pairing it with a BHA product, salicylic acid, which works best in terms of exfoliation at a pH between 3 and 4. So I don't get the alarm about applying multiple acids at the same time, because the implication there is that every acid is very strong and very irritating, and the more you apply, the greater your chance of having, an adverse reaction. I layer BHA or AHA and vitamin C quite a bit, sometimes over a stronger retinol, and then to make things really fun, I might throw hyaluronic acid. It's an acid into the mix. So, and my skin never suffers ill effects from it. Now, my personal experience with something like that, I would never tell anyone that's enough to go on. I just like relaying that in these conversations. I always keep in mind what the research has shown or not shown in this case. And what I haven't seen in the research is any contraindication for using a well-formulated BHA exfoliant and a well-formulated vitamin C product at the same time. They don't counteract each other. They don't cancel each other out. You will get benefits from both. I would suggest putting the BHA exfoliant on first, unless the product that you're using is a heavier cream, in which case it may make more sense if your serum is a true serum texture to put that C serum on first and then follow with the exfoliant. But you can experiment and see which one method of application works best for you. Christina says, hi Bryan, I just purchased a vitamin C booster and was wondering if my skin would be able to absorb it if I mix it into a moisturizer with mineral oil, or if the mineral oil would prevent absorption. I just saw this question. Did you ask this question in last week's chat? Maybe you did, and you're here today asking it again. In which case, I answered it. And yes, you can do that. And yes, it will slow penetration of the vitamin C into the skin. Mineral oil is definitely not as permeable as like silicones are, for example. People tend to think that silicone suffocates skin. It's not true. The silicone molecule, no matter what type of silicone it is, there's a permeability there. Oxygen transfer still happens. It's not suffocating your skin. I get that certain silicone formulas can feel a bit greasy and kind of slick, and you put something like that on your skin, especially if you overdo it, and you can be like, oh man, what is this on my face? But they're not keeping your skin from doing what it should normally do. What I added to my response earlier, assuming that you're the same person asking the same question, which would be kind of a fun coincidence if you weren't, is that a lot of prescription topical medications are in a base of mineral oil. A classic example is Retin-A. Tretinoin, Retin-A and Renova. Last I looked at the inactive ingredient list, mineral oil was one of the inactive ingredients. Clearly that tretinoin is getting through that mineral oil and still having a positive impact on skin, or nobody would be using Retin-A or Renova. They'd be like, you know what, this does nothing for me. You know, it's probably the mineral oil, but that's just not what's happening, so it's fine. Sakine or Sakine says, hi Bryan, when will the new booster be available in the Netherlands? It should be available in the Netherlands relatively soon. However, you can buy the product from our European distributors now because it's actually been available overseas under a different name for a while now, and that's the Resist Skin Transforming Multi-Correction Treatment. So it's available. That product will be going away, and the Azelaic Acid Booster is taking its place. But what's the Azelaic Acid Booster is a really a launch for our non EU market, particularly the United States, Canada, and Australia that have not had this product before. So yay, good news for you. You can get it now, just not the same name. Liz says, I've read that vitamin C should be clear, colorless, but my PC booster has an orange tint. Is this okay? It is okay. It's a myth, and it can be, well, let me back up a bit. Pure vitamin C, ascorbic acid, which is typically supplied as a powder, and then it's mixed into an aqueous solution, aqueous meaning water. If you were to take pure vitamin C ascorbic acid powder and put it into a solution of distilled water and, cap it, open it every day, it would probably discolor in about a week or two. And you would start to see it turn a golden straw color, and then that would progress over time to more of like a deep rusty orange color, almost like, tap water from rusty pipes. And then it'll eventually go all the way to like a dark brown, almost like a coffee color. And that, game over as far as when you get to that point. Our C15 Super Booster isn't 100% clear because we use ferulic acid as one of the supporting antioxidants. And ferulic acid is naturally a bit orangish in its coloration. So if you get a bottle of the C15, there can be variations depending on the batch and the condition of the raw material. Color will change from batch to batch. But the coloration that you see initially is the ferulic acid. Now, over time, like for example, I had a bottle of C15 Super Booster. It was an extra one, and I forgot about it, and I had opened it. One of those times when I think what must have happened is I was traveling with my C15 Super Booster, and when I got home and unpacked my toiletries, I left that in my travel bag by mistake. And then a couple nights later, I went to use my C15 and I couldn't find it. And so I opened up a new bottle. And then shortly after that, I probably found the older one. And I thought, I need to use this up first. And that new one that I opened and used a couple of times got forgotten about. And then a few months later, I found it in the back of the drawer and it had turned a dark brown. It kind of looked like iced tea. Not surprising. That's why we have our the PAO, the period after opening. We recommend using C15 Super Booster within 3 months. However, circling back, a slight discoloration from the get-go is not a sign that the vitamin C has gone bad. All right. Margie, hi Bryan, what do you think? Do you really think THD, Texyl Hexyl Diesel Ascorbate form of vitamin C, does anything for the skin versus ascorbic acid? Sure, absolutely. Do I think it's better than ascorbic acid? No. I think that all forms of vitamin C have value for skin. Tetrahexyl diesel ascorbate has a formulary advantage over pure ascorbic acid in that it is much more stable, and it is also, if I'm not mistaken, it's a fat-soluble form of vitamin C, so there's more formulary versatility with THD than there is with ascorbic acid. In terms of the research, you will absolutely find more research pertaining to ascorbic acid in skin than you will for THD in skin. And that's pretty much true of any form of vitamin C. I don't think ascorbic acid as a cosmetic ingredient is going to go away, much like we see newer versions of retinol, like retinol retinoate, retinaldehyde, hydroxypenocolin retinoate. Those are all good ingredients, nothing wrong with them. But the claims of blatant superiority over retinol typically don't hold water. Most likely, let me say this. What is exciting about those alternative forms of vitamin A, in much the same way that's exciting about the alternative forms of vitamin C, is that they open up the door for cosmetic chemists to have more different and more exciting, in some respects, formulary options. They're not as limited as they are with certain other ingredients. Sometimes, like in the case of the retinoids, you'll see products that contain both retinol and then one of the next generation retinoids, and those can be an interesting way to give your skin the benefits of both. Although in the case of the retinoids, I think that the overall benefits are fairly similar, but it can still be an interesting novel way to explore that, kind of like what we did with our advanced smoothing treatment, 10% AHA, where that used to be just glycolic acid when it was the liquid, and the serum, which is the newer version of the product, contains multiple acids: the lactic, malic, glycolic. Do we have tartaric? I'd have to double check. Totally, I'm a little scattered today. But same, good example of getting the benefits, the slightly nuanced benefits that those different AHAs provide because of their size. Maya says, hi Bryan, it's always recommended. It is always recommended to apply sunscreen 10 to 15 minutes before going out. Why is that? Does the SPF not work if applied just before going out? Thank you. That's generally speaking, yes, that's the premise. Just bit my tongue. That's the reason is, especially for the quote unquote synthetic sunscreen actives like octinoxate, avobenzone, oxybenzone, homosalate, on and on. They need time to absorb into skin's uppermost layers and essentially set up shop before your skin is exposed to UV light. The general rule is to follow that application advice. I've seen 10 to 15 minutes, I've seen 15 to 20 minutes, I've seen 30 minutes. I don't look at my clock when I put my sunscreen on. I just make sure that I get it on. And if I happen to need to go outside within 5 minutes of putting it on, I go outside. I mean, you gotta live. But I also wear mineral sunscreen, and the rule about applying, or the guideline about applying, X number of minutes before going outside, a lot of researchers don't think it applies to the mineral actives because they essentially provide instant protection by virtue of how they work. So the synthetic sunscreen actives primarily work by absorbing UV light as it hits your skin, and then they chemically convert it within your skin to heat energy that then evaporates. Much the same way your body is cooled off by sweating, and that excess heat goes away. That little conversion is happening, and the UV light is dissipated as heat before it can damage your skin. The mineral actives do that as well, but what they also do is reflect the UV light, and they're almost in a sense like a bit of a blanket for your face. So if going out with the synthetic sunscreens on too soon is sort of like wearing a mesh t-shirt and thinking you're going to get sun protection, immediately, versus going out with a more opaque, tightly woven shirt on, like a heavier cotton. Because even like a plain white cotton t-shirt still provides an SPF of about 5. If I'm making any sense there, maybe I'm not. Maybe I just went down a rabbit hole. But if you are wearing, my personal advice, if you're wearing a mineral sunscreen, is you don't have to put it on X number of minutes before you go outside. Just put it on and go. If it is synthetic sunscreens, and particularly if you are heading outdoors on a sunny day, I would wait at least 20, 30 minutes before going outside. Okay, this Kahanger.
I can't get the answer to that on HomePod.
Sorry, Siri scared me. Kahanger says, hey Bryan, can I use Paula's clear salicylic acid 2% on my scalp? What is the cause of acne on scalp? Is it the same as the face? Yes, you can use it on your scalp. I would, if you have a few breakouts on your scalp and you can kind of part your hair so that you can see the breakouts, and then take that liquid product and put a little bit onto a cotton swab and then lightly dab it onto the blemishes. I think that's the best way to go versus just pouring some in your hand and, greasing up your whole head. The cause of acne on the scalp is pretty much the same thing as acne anywhere on the body. It can be compounded on the scalp if you are using heavier conditioners, if you use heavier oils to style your hair, if you use waxes or pomades to style your hair. And to some degree, some people find that the holding agents the film forming agents that are used in many types of hairsprays are a contributing factor as well. The other potential issue is if you're using a conditioning shampoo as opposed to a shampoo that rinses cleanly and is really designed to remove buildup from the hair as opposed to constantly redepositing more conditioning agents. Eventually, those can make their way down the hair shaft to your scalp and clog the hair follicles. And chances are you're not putting heavier or waxier ingredients like that on your skin. So the underlying causes are the same pretty much, but what we put in our hair, particularly leave-on products, is what's making it worse and what causes those breakouts to be larger, more painful, and sometimes harder to treat. You can also use benzoyl peroxide on your scalp, but be aware that benzoyl peroxide is capable of bleaching hair. If you have light hair, if you're natural blonde, probably not much of an issue. But if you are a redhead, brunette, or even darker, I'd be a little nervous about using benzoyl peroxide. Because how do you get it on your scalp without getting some on your hair? Elizabeth says, OTC retinol versus prescription strength. Which do you prefer? Personally, OTC. I found that I get such great results with various strengths of over-the-counter retinol that I wouldn't go back to a prescription form. I used various prescription forms over the years, particularly when I was in my late teens and into my 20s and still struggling with acne, and I hadn't found Paula's Choice yet. Actually, I knew about Paula, but she hadn't come out with her line yet. That wasn't until 95. And even then, I didn't actually try my first Paula's Choice product until like 1999, maybe, just shortly before I started working for the company. Because I figured if I'm ever going to work for this woman, I should say something about her products from personal experience. You know, couldn't hurt. So yeah, this is my anecdotal experience, because I think you asked me, which do I prefer? So there you go. The prescription products, no matter what base it's in, and no matter if it's adapalene, which is different is available over the counter now in its original prescription strength, but stronger versions of it remain prescription only. Tretinoin, which is the original Retin-A, and it's available from several companies as well as generically, or Tazarotene, which is also known by the brand name of Tazarac. There's a few other retinoids more coming out that we're kind of keeping our eye on, and they work beautifully for many people. I'm not discounting them at all, and I would encourage anyone to try both. Try over-the-counter retinol and try prescription. I wouldn't say if you're new to them to try them at the same time, because I think doing so increases the risk of side effects from both. But for sure, and this is backed up by research, this isn't just my personal experience, prescription retinoids have a much higher incidence of causing unwanted side effects, from erythema, which is diffuse redness, pruritus, which is like that burning, flaking skin, and just overall sensitivity. When I used Retin-A years back, even though it did not really make my skin red, my skin constantly felt sunburned. It was very strange. And even when I scaled back in terms of how much I applied, and even when I mixed it with other products to delay penetration, I was probably using something with mineral oil back then, it still caused problems for me. So I got great results on my acne, but the trade-off was my skin was just uncomfortable and often really flaky, particularly around my chin, a lot. I've never really experienced that with retinol, unless with the higher strength products like a 1% retinol, if I apply that type of a product too often, in my case, that would be every night as opposed to like every third night. But even then, the response that I get is not as strong as when I was using prescription retinoids. But again, don't let that sway you from trying a prescription retinoid if you think you could benefit from one. And if you are struggling with more advanced signs of aging, or stubborn acne, I would absolutely encourage you to talk to a dermatologist or even your general practitioner about trying a prescription retinoid and seeing how it works for you. Okay, back to the questions. Oh, I know what I wanted to mention to you guys because this was so cool. I came across an article this week about this company in Australia. Australia is the country with the highest incidence of skin cancer in the world. Not surprising, based on their geographic location and proximity to the equator, and preponderance of European transplants who have very, very light sun-sensitive skin, who are living in an area where the native population evolved to have darker skin as a means of protecting them from sunlight. Not 100%, but definitely some built-in protection. This company is developing and hoping to bring to market a blood test that would detect early stage melanoma, which is the deadliest form of skin cancer. If you catch melanoma early, it is, I believe that they said that this test, if it works according to what they are predicting, catching melanoma early would bump the cure rate up to about 95%. That's incredible. That is going to save thousands of lives. It said it's going to be another 3 years or so of testing and whatnot, regulatory. Don't get me started there. Regulations have their place, but oftentimes with pharmaceuticals and over-the-counter stuff, they can be maddeningly slow. It's amazing because melanoma, if you don't catch it early enough, the 5-year survival rate drops precipitously, because what happens is that this skin cancer that starts off in a localized area, as the cancer grows, it spreads typically via the lymph nodes to several other areas of the body where it can set up shop and cause different types of cancers and other malignancies that are much more difficult to treat. I was very excited about that. I don't have a history of skin cancer in my family, but as somebody who has had a few bad sunburns as a kid, who's of Northern European descent, who has fair skin that burns then tans, and a fair number of moles, I'm, hello, melanoma poster child here in terms of the likelihood that somebody like me will be dealing with melanoma at some point in my life is higher than somebody who is, for example, of African descent and has either been more sun careful, or again, their darker skin tone just offers that better built-in protection. Again, not excusing sunscreen for people who have dark skin, but somebody like me absolutely needs it. What do I think about, this is from Posh, what do I think about Plasma Face Life Vampire Facial? Is it a scam? I haven't looked into that particular one, and it's actually been a while since I've been asked about the Vampire Facial. If I'm remembering correctly, the Vampire Facial has to do with extracting some of the patient's blood, and then it goes through a centrifuge where the plasma, which is nutrient rich, and the plasma is when you separate plasma from blood, the plasma is kind of a translucent to clear fluid, because you're removing all the red blood cells, and it's a good source of several different nutrients that normally circulate through the body. And so the thinking is that if you put that on the skin, that you are going to have healthier, younger looking skin. That's about all I can say about it. I know that I think it was Kim Kardashian popularized it, probably on Instagram. She was posting photos and whatnot, but I haven't looked at the research in terms of if that particular type of facial is beneficial or not. I kind of thought it went away though, but you're asking, so it's still out there. It's still being talked about. Oh, I thought somebody. Oh, maybe it was. No, Elizabeth asked. Elizabeth wants to know how I feel about manual exfoliation as in a scrub. Um, I don't use a scrub personally. I have found some over the years that I've liked. I have tested a lot. I've tested a lot of scrubs over the years in the hopes of finding one that I feel would be gentle enough for my skin and not make me feel like I'm tearing at my skin. And the vast majority of them do. Years ago, Nivea made one that I actually had in regular rotation because I do like the extra clean feeling. Occasional use of a scrub gives me. If I'm particularly like if I'm doing like televised media and I'm wearing heavier makeup or I'm wearing a heavier sunscreen, I often feel like my cleanser just isn't enough. I find washcloths a bit sloppy and cumbersome to use. I'd rather use a washcloth from the neck down than on my face if I use one at all. I know Paula's a big proponent of washcloths and uses one every day, and good on her for that. They're just not my thing. I just don't find them as easy or pleasant to use as a scrub. So yeah, ultimately, if it's a really gentle scrub, and I wish there were more of them out there. I think like over on our Beautypedia site, we only list 3 or 4 on our best list because it's just Clinique is one of them. They redid their 7-day scrub cream, the rinse off formula, and it's very soft and surprisingly gentle. So right off the top of my head, if you are a scrub person and you want something that's going to be much easier on your skin and still give you that extra bit of polish and refinement, try that one. It's also fragrance free. So yeah, my bottom line is I don't mind a scrub if you use it very carefully and it's not too gritty. I think it could be a nice adjunct or extra boost to your cleansing routine. I'll close that question by saying that I don't feel that a scrub, and the research backs me up on this, can come close to doing what a leave-on exfoliant, AHA or BHA, can do. They just completely different mechanisms of action, so to speak. And if you are a fan of scrubs and enjoy using them, there's no reason you can't use an AHA or BHA exfoliant as well. They do different things. Scrub is mostly surface and mostly extra cleansing. AHA, BHA go a little bit deeper into skin, with BHA going further than AHA because it's oil soluble, and both offer hydrating benefits that scrubs in and of themselves just don't do. Huang says, and if I massacred your name, I'm sorry. It's so glad to see you here. Really, I just had bad talk with PC's customer service during the email. I made 2 orders and they canceled these and keep asking me questions that don't even make sense. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. My goodness, did you continue? Okay. Well, I'm sorry you had that experience. That is not typical. I would encourage you to try again. Without more information, I don't know what to say beyond that other than, that's not how we never want our customers to feel that way. And then he goes on to say, do you have any recommendations of mineral sunscreen for oily, acne-prone skin? I use PC's Resist Superlight SPF 30, but the shade of it is too dark or too orange for me. Yeah, you could try the one that I use, which is the SkinCeuticals Physical Fusion UV Defense SPF 50. It does have a tint to it, and unlike the tint that we did for the Super Light, which is on the warmer side, the tint of the SkinCeuticals is it's like a neutral gray. And I know that doesn't sound very attractive, but I got it on now. This is what it looks like. I've been using that for quite a while just because it happens to work really, really well for my skin. And I think it's a fine option for oily, breakout-prone skin. It's a really fluid formula. If you don't want a tint at all, they do make a mineral sunscreen with a similar consistency that I think is SPF 30. It might be 50. And I think that's called Sheer Physical UV Defense, also from SkinCeuticals, so check those out. Bruja Phoenix says, if you apply chemical sunscreen over makeup, will it be effective? Some say that chemicals filters only work in direct contact with the skin. I've seen that. I have seen that recommendation that they need to bond to the skin surface, and if you're putting them on over makeup, that bonding is. I don't want to go so far as to say it won't happen, because if you apply your makeup in a sheer fashion, it's going to get through and be able to do that bonding. But if you're applying it in an even layer, I don't know that would be the best approach. I would rethink your routine and put that sunscreen on prior to the makeup, and even better in terms of layering for enhanced sun protection is to follow with a foundation or tint and moisturizer, whatever, CC cream, BB cream, that has sunscreen as well, so you get that extra layer of sun protection. All right, let's see. About 5-ish minutes left. I know I started a bit late. Some technical difficulties. I think I got it down now. What's funny, though, is doing these chats. It's like, I swear there's like a new, like something goes a little bit wonky every week. And just when I think I get this pattern down, like first this, then this, then this. And I'm not tech savvy. But I can commit things to memory and like, okay, this worked last time. Let's do it again. And I'll go through those steps and something goes weird. And I get a notice from YouTube saying we're not receiving your transmission, or this setting isn't. And then you go in and you make the setting change. You're like, okay, great. Everything looks perfect. And no. So, but I have some tricks that I'm going to try next week. So hopefully we'll start right on time. Okay. Yes, Sarumo says, hey, Brian, I was wondering if there are any plans for more products in the Comm line. An SPF 50 would be amazing. Really excited about the Azelaic Acid 10%. I'm glad you're excited. At this point, there are no plans to expand the Comm line. It's not to say that it won't happen. In fact, we're having a big product development meeting next month that I will be in Seattle for. In fact, I will be doing a live chat that week from our Seattle office. So you'll see me dressed up and in better lighting. And we're actually working on getting some better lighting in here because I think these chats look a little bit too homespun, but maybe that's part of their charm. SN12 says, everyone freaks out about sunscreens that have retinol palmitate. Any reason one should? No! Good gravy! I wish people would freak out more about the sun than they do about what's in sunscreen or all these stories about what sunscreens are allegedly doing to our skin. By the way, to backtrack on a conversation from a couple of chats ago, there definitely is a reason to be careful with certain sunscreen actives if you're going to go into the water in areas where there are coral reefs. There's clear evidence that certain sunscreen actives are having a deleterious effect, there's that word again, on coral reefs. I wish that other industries would rally around this important cause the way that some other groups have, because although sunscreen definitely hurts, I still don't think that avoiding those actives altogether is going to make enough of a difference. It has to be a concerted effort. But I agree that change has to start somewhere, and we all have to do what we can. And if we know that something is a problem in that situation, it does make sense to use something that is not going to present either a risk at all or is at least going to present a lower level of risk. So retinol palmitate. Here's the thing. There's the research about it being a problem has been widely debunked. And what was seemingly never acknowledged is that retinol palmitate, the ester, fatty acid ester form of retinol, is naturally present in our skin. If retinol palmitate in sunscreen is somehow presenting a risk to skin, increased risk of skin cancer, whatever the alarming claim may be, it's in our skin. I don't even know how to start arguing around. There's just the logic that a tiny amount mixed into a sunscreen is going to have an ill effect on our health when that ingredient is naturally present in our skin. So you're putting the sunscreen on, it's in your skin. You can't get rid of it. Well, you could if you had eventually, I'm sure you could if you went down the road of nutritional deficiency, but I'm not advocating for that. I don't think any rational person would. So it's not something that you need to worry about. Having said that, the news is out, kind of like it was years ago about parabens, and enough people get it in their heads that it's a problem, and so it just automatically becomes one of those ingredients that you look to avoid. And it's like the dialogue about whether or not we even should avoid it kind of gets tampered, and the common thinking is just, you know what, let's just avoid it. And so a lot of brands, including Paula's Choice, are no longer formulating with it in their sun protection products because we don't want to have the discussion. It's not worth it. Not that it isn't important to have these discussions, but it often turns into more of a challenge. Like a customer will call and say, well, why do you have this ingredient in your product? Haven't you read that it's harmful? And we can present the research and present the information, and they remain skeptical. Absolutely, they're right. But that gives you a sense of why it's just like there's other antioxidants, other vitamins that we can use that don't come with the hang-ups that certain other ingredients like retinol palmitate do. So while I don't think it's a problem, it isn't something that's worth constantly having the debate about. I don't feel strongly enough about it that I would push to have it in any of our sunscreen products because it's just, this amazing ingredient. There's no other antioxidant that's nearly as good. That just isn't true. So we avoid it. Why hasn't PC put out a mineral SPF 50 yet? Honestly, we have tried. There have been some submissions over the years, including a couple recently that we really liked, that we thought we were there with, and they go through the battery of stability and compatibility tests that we put all of our products through, but sunscreens in the States, being over-the-counter drugs, they're subject to a whole other set of tests over and above even what you do to determine the SPF rating. And we've had stability issues every time, or we could not get the SPF to where we need it to be and then have it hold. Ask any chemist who formulates skincare products. I can almost guarantee you the majority of them will say sunscreens are the most difficult products to formulate. You need something that is going to be aesthetically pleasing. You need something that's going to be appropriate for the intended skin type. You need to choose the right combination and percentage of active ingredients to get the level of sun protection you want. You need to formulate a product that works well under makeup. You need to formulate a product that works well under active. There's just all these considerations, and keeping the active suspended and keeping the system emulsified, and sunscreen ingredients are tricky, finicky ingredients to work with, and one of the easiest ways to solubilize and get sunscreens kind of through a bit faster are those sprays that have a lot of alcohol, because it's actually pretty easy to stabilize and formulate a lot of different sunscreen actives in an alcohol base of like 70+% denatured alcohol, but we don't use that ingredient, at least I think we still have a teeny tiny amount in the Skin Recovery Serum, and it's so small. But that amount in a sunscreen, no difference from an emulsion. So we wouldn't use it in that type of situation. So we keep trying. The sunscreens that we have brought to market that have tested beautifully, and not surprisingly, they are top sellers for us and loved around the world. The Resist Super Light Daily Wrinkle Defense SPF 30 that was mentioned earlier is actually one of them. That is one of our top, in fact, I think it is our #1 selling SPF product. And our new primer serum, well, newish. It's been out for a little while. With SPF 30 was another sunscreen success story for us. All right, let me take 2 more questions. Jacopo says, do you use a Clarisonic or any other tool? I do not. I did use a Clarisonic for a little while with the cashmere brush head because I found the original, and this was the Clarisonic for men. I found the original brush head that came with that to be too harsh. I tried the sensitive brush head. I thought that was still too harsh. The cashmere one, I sound like Goldilocks. Isn't it Goldilocks or the Red Riding Hood? No, Goldilocks. I was right. It was, you know, with the bowls of porridge, and this was just right. Yeah, so the cashmere one was just right, and it was in my, you know, I'd use it. I didn't see. I used it consistently for a while. I didn't see a big difference from it, and I didn't like the extra time it took to use versus just washing my face with my cleanser in the shower. I did not like the Clarisonic for removing makeup. Not that it didn't work to remove makeup, I just didn't like all the extra mess it created and like the bristles getting all gunked up with makeup, and then you have to wash the brush and on and on and on. So if you use a Clarisonic and you like the results, you know, more power to you. Just don't use the harsh brush heads and wash them regularly. But it just wasn't for me. Oh, Lewis says my skin's amazing. Thank you. I always love hearing that. What is your skin routine? Looks great. Oh, I need to post my skin routine because I get asked that a lot. Yeah, now that you can get different. Okay, Megan says, better yet, now that you can get different OTC over the counter, would you recommend for anti-aging? Thanks. You could give it a try. Unlike tretinoin, adapalene, which is the active ingredient, doesn't have the research behind it pertaining to like collagen stimulation, wrinkle reduction, skin tone improvement. Most of the research on adapalene is related to acne. So if you are an adult with acne and you're also struggling with signs of aging, I think OTC different would absolutely be worth trying, and you may see some anti-aging benefits. We just don't have the research to fall back on and say, at this point it would be more theoretical because it is a retinoid, and we could extrapolate that because it's a retinoid, and we do have anti-aging research about other types of retinoids like retinol, that in theory adapalene should work in that manner, but we just don't know for sure. So if it were me, I would give different a try, and then I'd probably add in a retinol product, a lower strength one like our resist intensive wrinkle repair retinol serum or our skin balancing super antioxidant concentrate. I think that would be great, and use them at the same time. With either one of those serums from Paula's Choice, you're giving your skin a whole slew of other beneficial ingredients, whereas with OTC different, you're just getting that active ingredient in a very simple gel base. That's it. And speaking of that's it, that is it for this week's chat. I thank you so much for joining me. As always, it's nice to see some of the same people coming back and seeing some new names in there. I love the questions. You guys definitely keep me on my toes, and I will be back and I'll post about the pH of the Azelaic Acid Booster very soon. So until next week, I'll be back next week. Take care.